Hello, everybody, and I thought I'd just come on and talk about Bob McGrath and Christine McVie after the sad news that we heard that both of them have passed away recently. Christine, of course, of the band Fleetwood Mac, and Bob McGrath, star of Sesame Street. In fact, one of the original stars from the first episode in 1969 and starred until 2016. So yeah, a long time. And in that time, he's seen various producers and the Muppet performers, come and go. Excuse me. It's just to make sure the voice doesn't go. Right, so, yes, and Bob played Bob Johnson, who is a music teacher, and Bob sort of became an uncle figure to Big Bird and all the children. I mean, he did have a very calming voice, didn't he? I saw on Twitter a demo version from the pilot episode of Sesame Street, so as a test, and Bob, now, you probably all know the kids that sing the Sesame Street theme tune, and Bob McGrath actually sung the theme for the pilot, which was strange because usually I'm so used to hearing children sing it. But yeah, I mean, Bob's version was good. And Bob could have been a crooner, I think, with a voice like him. Really very gentle voice, and I saw a picture of him in some of his jumpers as well. I mean, he would look out of place him wearing this, I suppose, sort of like Perry Como and Val Doonican if he did, with the sweaters. And yeah, he would have been perfect for singing songs like jazz. But I suppose jazz was a big part of Sesame Street's music. Joe Raposo, who wrote Being Green and wrote the Sesame Street theme song and wrote so many songs and sing later to be a hit for the Carpenters, of course. His music was sort of based around jazz. And music, obviously, a huge part of Sesame Street. And Bob was part of that. So, yeah, very sad to hear of his passing, and obviously condolences to his family and friends and the crew, who I'm sure there's still a few people in the crew who probably, worked with him. Right, so Christine McVie, of course. Now, for many people, the definitive lineup of Fleetwood Mac will be Christine McVie, John McVie, Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks. And Mick Fleetwood. I can't believe I forgot him. After all, the band is called Fleetwood Mac. And so many brilliant hits in that lineup of the band. In the 70s, obviously, Go Your Own Way and Don't Stop. In the 80s, Everywhere and Little Lies, and just an absolutely fantastic band. I love so many of Fleetwood Mac, and even some of the stuff which, when they were a blues band with Peter Green in the late 60s, like Black Magic Woman, later to be covered by Santana, and and Albatross as well, yep. But my favourite Fleetwood Mac stuff is really from the, 70s and 80s, really. Like I said, with that lineup of Christine, John, Mick, Stevie and Lindsay. And I heard a wonderful interview over the weekend on Sounds of the 70s on Radio 2 with Johnny Walker. Well, it was an interview from a couple of years ago. Last year, I think, actually, which is scary to think that was just last year. And now, fast forward to this year, and she's not with us anymore. Christine, by the sounds of it, she didn't like to be in the main spotlight. She liked to be at the back at the keyboards. Although I thought her answer was very interesting, saying she liked to hear what John, her husband, and Mick, of course, were doing. So, and she said she wasn't really much of a solo artist, really, which is fair enough, because some people like being in bands but don't want to be, are not comfortable with being the main frontman. There's usually always a quiet person in the band, like John Deacon from Queen, for example. Shocking, and very sad to of Christine's passing. And condolences to, obviously, fellow bandmates of Fleetwood Mac, who, when performing years and years together, although she did leave in 1998 and then came back a couple of years later, which I'm glad about that. I mean, she needed time out, and she had a fear of flying as well, which was interesting because, given that she was in the band for years before that, I wouldn't have thought she'd have a fear of flying, but obviously it just got too much for her. And yes, she took some time out, came back, and then just picked up where they left off, I suppose. Oh, excuse me, sorry. My condolences to Christine's friends and family, and thank you for the music. Thank you for the incredible music that Fleetwood Mac have left us. Now the big question is, will Fleetwood Mac still continue? Which is interesting, because obviously they did continue when Christine had left the band, and I don't think Christine was originally in the band. I'm just trying to remember. No, I don't think she was. And talking of Fleetwood Mac, I need to get talking to my good mate Jordan Earlham, also known as Jelly Wheels, and because we were going to review Rumours, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'll let you know any more on that. And although Christine passed away a few days ago, and I was going to do a tribute, and somehow it didn't happen, but I thought tonight, I wanted to pay tribute to Bob, and wanted to pay tribute to Christine as well. Got to do them both here, and just wanted to come on here and talk about them and share, what an extraordinary life both of them had. Such long careers, both entertaining, really. That's both what they did. Obviously, in slightly different mediums. Bob in children's television and education with Sesame Street, and Christine with Fleetwood Mac. So, just absolutely amazing. To have a career for that so long, that is, some people are very lucky if they, get past 2 years maybe of a career in the entertainment industry. Some people just fade away, but they didn't. They just kept carrying on. Well, apart from Christine having a little break, but in Bob's case, a career for absolute years, and and just one more slightly related thing about Sesame Street. I love my favourite Southern Waldorf gag is in the Muppet Show, and Marty Feldman guest starred, and they were doing the story of Arabian Nights, and this was a real treat, really, because a couple of times Big Bird and Bert and Ernie, but they weren't the guest stars on this one. In fact, they're not even introduced, they just appear, and it's just so wonderful to see Bert and Ernie, Cookie Monster, and Grover with, Kermit, Miss Piggy, Gonzo, Fozzie Bear, et al. And my favourite joke is, how to get to Sesame Street when we can't get out of this theatre box? Well, the delivery was probably better from that than me. But yeah, that's my favourite Saturday morning love show. And also, talking of the Muppets, when Love Is Gone, the scene has been restored. So you might know When Love Is Gone. Well, it appears at the end credits sung by Martina McBride, but it was meant to be sung, and it was originally sung by Michael Caine as Scrooge and Meredith Braun as Belle, and it got deleted because, they didn't think kids would sit through, the slow song and the sequence. So Belle just leaves Scrooge quite abruptly, and you have Gonzo and Rizzo, or should I say Charles Dickens, him comforting Rizzo and telling the audience basically that Belle has left Scrooge and that made Scrooge miserable. I mean, it's funny because when you watch When Love Is Gone, it flows, and then when you watch the scene without it, it's so abrupt. It does feel a little weird that it just cuts. There's a nice little, it makes the scene flow, which is an interesting decision. But I could understand Disney's decision. I mean, they were thinking of cutting When She Loved Me from Toy Story 2 out. And obviously, Randy Newman thought that kids won't sit through this quite, because it's quite a long sequence. And again, a slow song. But they didn't, and thankfully, I'm so glad they didn't cut that out, because it's such a beautiful song. Now, I'm a big fan of Randy Newman, and usually I like a Randy Newman song to be sung by the man himself. But When She Loved Me is the one example when Sarah McLachlan's beautiful voice is just absolutely fantastic for it, and just the strings, his piano, and her voice it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Right, well, I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. If you want to, like, share, comment, and subscribe to the TubeMix YouTube channel. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.